On your feet! Get them going!
Oh, hello. Sorry, not sure what to do about my lightsaber. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome. This is driving me nuts. Welcome across Examinations Live. I can't get my camera to work properly. Hello, Tina. Welcome to the show. I know you're always pensively waiting for me to start the show, but here I am. What's going on today besides the fact that I can't get my camera to adjust in any way, and so I look all washed out? But although the contrast over here is fine, I don't know. You know what I was thinking though, which has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, because this is actually a Bible show, and I was thinking about it. The arguments, some of the arguments, and these are arguments by both atheists and Calvinists alike. The arguments of atheists and Calvinists oftentimes come down to this, and I say it all the time. I was just thinking about it in a different way. It's the sort of the programmer's fallacy, right? The programmer. How do you program? What's the most basic? I learned this when I was a kid because my dad is a hardware engineer. The most basic element of programming is if then, right? If A, then B. It's a logical progression, but it is trapped in linear thought. And I was just thinking about that because I was thinking of like, oh, which particular thing was I thinking about? It was the I will visit the sin of the father unto the, or not the father. I will visit the sin of, I will visit the sin of the father unto the fourth and fifth generation, something like that, right? I think that's the heck is on my finger. Some sort of brown, anyways, squirrel. Oh wow, so was my dad. He was a computer engineer, and he was a code troubleshooter at Martin Marietta. My dad started his career in the Army in the 60s, and then he worked for Burroughs, IBM. I'm not sure in which order. I think it was IBM, then Burroughs, then something else. No, did he go from Burroughs to DEC? I think he went from Burroughs to Digital Equipment Corporation. Then from DEC, he started his own company called Suitable Solutions, and then from there, he went to work for Sun Microsystems until he retired from having a stroke. So yeah, he was there in the early days of computer science, and apparently so was yours. So here's to having pioneers in the computer field for parents. Thank you, Mike. I so appreciate you, as I'm sure you're aware. I look forward to your cross examinations. Well, I look forward to them too. I don't plan for them because I'm terrible at planning. But yeah, to that, my point. All of these arguments from atheists to Calvinists are centered on an understanding locked in linear time. If then, right? But how do you conceptualize eternity? How do you all of these problems are solvable? Actually, this is something I was telling the kids at church. Like after church, I was like, I just need to do a quick fellas study about how the atheist job The atheist job is not to prove everything you believe wrong, right? That's their desire. But what they try to do is put a chink in your armor. And I don't mean a small Chinese man. I mean to put a little break in the armor of God to let doubt creep in like a cancer and corrupt all of your faith, right? So they will go to one thing to another and constantly just test, oh, you have an answer for this? Well, they will move immediately. As soon as they realize you have an answer for this, they will move immediately to another attack until they find something you don't have an answer for, right? You could have an answer for 1,000 of their questions, and it won't convince them that, wow, there's an answer for everything. It will convince them to look for another attack vector. And if they find something where you don't have an answer, what you should be reliant on is the fact that you had an answer for the 1,000 other things. Because if the Bible is true, there is an answer for everything. And over time, you should come to realize that, oh my gosh, there's been an answer for every single thing that I've looked up that makes sense rationally, logically, and in the world of reality. And when they don't have an answer, what do? We'll figure that out eventually. That's okay. So they have this, and they accuse us of the God of the gaps theory, when they have the we'll figure it out eventually of the gaps theory, and they fall back on that without an ounce of irony, without a modicum of hypocrisy. They will fall back on, we'll know someday. Sure, it seems impossible now, but someday someone will figure out how something impossible became impossible. I'm sorry, I hate to boil it down and make it sound like it is that simple, but it is that simple. But because we believe that the Bible is from God, they only have to find one thing that can get in there and drop a seed of doubt for you to water. Because you're, gosh dang it, I don't know the answer to that question. And then you forget that every time you've researched an answer, just like we did the other day, right? It had been my entire Christian walk that I'd never delved into that question of, Jesus says some of you here will not taste of death until they see basically the end days. And I'm like, I never bothered looking up the Greek for that. And then I looked up the Greek. You know where the answer was? The answer was in the Greek. The answer was in the original thing Jesus said. The original thing Jesus said was, some particular person here will not taste of death until he sees the end days. Who was that? It was John. John saw, otherwise John couldn't have written Revelation, right? But Jesus was telling him that when he was still alive. So that was a prophecy of John towards the end of his life, probably 30 years later, roughly 30 years later. 60 years later. I'm sorry, roughly 60 years later. And then John was teleported, time swapped into the future. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how, but John's soul, conscious or physical being, I have no idea. It says he saw a vision, so it's probably just his soul was taken to the future, to our future even, to see the end of time, the end of the age, not the end of time. And it's like, wow, if all of the Bibles translated into English had just translated some, the word for some, correctly in the Greek, which is some specific person here, which means one person. One, not some. One of you particular people is what he was saying. And it's like, wow, there's an answer. It's like there's an answer for everything. I grant you, you may not know the answer. You may not know the answer for 30 years. Like this guy. But there's an answer for everything. And I that's how I kind of cemented my faith, really, when I came to the conclusion that, wow, this Bible proves itself from outside of time and space, and the author claims to be God. So there should be an answer for everything. There should be a logical, rational answer for everything, right? If that's the case. Discounting metaphysics and miracles. I'm not saying they're illogical. I'm saying they're not, and I'm not saying they're irrational. I'm saying they're, okay, so not discounting. Never mind. I'm not discounting miracles. God, who makes the rules, can bend the rules. That's God. Mike should learn Greek. What am I drinking today? Black coffee, no cream, no sugar, straight black cold brew stock. Very good. Mike should learn Greek. The things I should do, but I have not the time to do, could fill a book. Could fill many, many books. Could fill a heck of a lot of books, I'll tell you right now. What's up, Martin? Also, hi to Joe and Tina and Chuck. And where are the Lesters? Where are the Lesters? Where's Lady Celtic Moon? Oh, I spoil myself with my coffee. Cream and sugar always. Well, I'll do the not too sweet. I'm not, honestly, it depends on what's on sale. I'll buy the whatever's on sale at Bargain Market. But right now at Albertsons, they have Stoke cold brew for, it's $1 off, and then it's another $1.50 off if you buy 4 or more. You get $3.50 off each, which is $2.50 off each from a $7 thing. So it's like, I bought 4 today. That's actually why I was late. I went to the store. Well, that and the fact that I was trying to get my camera to work and I can't seem to. What's up, Douglas Thornstone? I'm here. I hope you're all sane and happy. So far, so good, Douglas. So far, so good. Actually, it's not as difficult as people say. I would say that it's easier than English. Right. But having been raised in English, I understand that English is a really screwy language that doesn't make a lot of sense to other people because it doesn't follow basic rules, because it's a mishmash of a bunch of different languages, from Europe, like with the Germanic and the Romantic, and then we start throwing Japanese words in there too. We just throw everything in there, and so it's a great big beautiful mess. That doesn't make learning other languages easier. I've been using Splenda monk fruit sugar. It's not bad. It's not for one quite as sweet sugar. Yeah, it's the sweetness thing that gets people addicted, right? Or is it actually sugar? Is it whatever? Greek has a lot of rules, granted, but it's logical. That's good. So many words that sound the same but are spelled differently and mean different things. Yeah. Like that EA in mean. It can be mean. It can be bear. It can be, what else can EA sound like? Forbearance. Tier. Well, that would be mean. So it could be long E. It could be a That's not the schwa sound, is it? No, that's just short E. There. There. I know. Also, everything is pronounced as it is written. Yeah, right? Need, lead, bread, freak. Yeah. Anyways, And that, yeah, English sucks at following rules. We have rules, we just don't follow them. What was that? Where was I going with that? Doesn't have a bad aftertaste, so there's a good point. Yeah. Well, I actually, if a good cold brew coffee, just black, is actually good. It doesn't have to be sweet. And it's not like super bitter. If it's good, it's a tiny bit bitter, which is why you put the sugar in it. But anyways, any Hawaii's. May is here. Jehovah God watches people suffer when he can change it. He is cruel God, doesn't do anything. How did God hurt you, May? What happened in your life where you really, really wanted something to happen, and then the opposite happened, and it just broke your heart, and now you're mad at God? Tell us. Justin the Rhino. Hail, Mike, and hail, chat. Welcome, Justin the Rhino. I'm looking for an honest answer here, May. Not just another random blind attack on Jehovah God. Yeah, because I get it. Look, God allows bad things. You know what? God allows every single person to die. But ultimately, that's for the good. Are you typing really slow, or just you don't want to answer the question? Because this kind of vitriol from people, that doesn't come from nowhere, guys. You all know this. If someone is this angry at God, it's because something didn't go their way and they turned their back on God. There we go. I prayed to Jehovah to help my son, and he suffered and died. Is there anyone who doesn't suffer and die, May? And it is the only way for God to be good for no one to ever suffer and die. Justin says, how can God change everything without purging free will and ultimately love? Yeah, he can't control everything. I mean, he can control everything. He doesn't control everything. But in a way, he does control everything. It's a very weird thing, the sovereignty of God, what he allows with free will and what he allows and then what he causes. Just because he allows something doesn't mean he causes it. Right? And this goes back to what I said at the start. This is how can you wrap your head around the
that's pretty cool.
eternal perspective of God.
Siege X, yeah.
Right? Tina, being a good, kind Christian lady. Ma'am, I'm so sorry to hear. May, I'm so sorry to hear that. I wish I could hug you right now.
Looks like Call of Duty Mobile.
May says, we all die, and that's the way of the world. Jehovah God says he will help, and he does nothing at all. Well, so you've never experienced God help you in anything prior to your son passing away?
That looks exactly the same.
David prayed day and night that his son wouldn't pass away. And his son passed away. But that didn't make David lose his faith. It made him get up and stop grieving. I mean, I'm sure he didn't actually stop grieving, but he stopped praying. And he said, I will go to him. He will not come back to me. So he accepted that God had his son in his hands and that he would go to him when he passed away. So have you ever watched what is it? Bruce Almighty? Right?
Something feels off.
Bruce Almighty, where he's like, he just says yes to everyone's prayers. and the world goes into just absolute chaos. You can't just say yes to everyone's prayers. I think, I mean, it's a silly example, but
How much I get
everyone suffers, everyone dies.
like that.
I mean, if you've been here at all, you know how familiar I am with grief myself. So,
That's when I'm scoping.
but
You can look really fast.
if you look, I feel for you. I completely, and I know exactly how you feel. I do.
Like if you're shooting someone over here.
So
you
what
gotta
good
look
is
to the
Jehovah
left.
God if he lets an 18-year-old boy suffer and do nothing? He's he suffering now? Because he's out of your hands doesn't mean he's suffering now. It's not alleviating a suffering person from the world, helping them from further suffering. Is not alleviating a suffering person from the world, helping them from further suffering. Oh, yeah. In other words, taking him home. Yeah, I prayed and prayed and prayed. My nephew wouldn't die. He was only 14. May.
Yeah. A little bit.
Prayed and prayed and prayed.
AMR, so it has like.
But you know what? We all suffer and we all die.
Yeah.
My son was not Christian. I was.
Kinda.
Oof. Well, I mean, you turn your back on God. So, were you? I know this is a freaking horrible question to ask, but Jesus said, if you do not, and this is by way of comparison, if you do not hate father and mother, son and daughter, compared to how much you love Jesus, then you don't love him. You loving your son more than you love Jesus. I know this is just what the Bible says. So I know you hate it and you're mad about it, but if you put your needs, your son's needs, anybody's needs ahead of your love for God and your faith in God, is that faith? Is it faith? When your faith is tested and your faith fails, did you have faith or did you fail? That's why, look, Abraham was willing to sacrifice his own kid. And that was the test of his ultimate. That's why we call him the father of faith. Right? A faith that fails testing, the testing proves your faith. Show me my faith by my works. I mean, show you, whatever. I'll show you my faith by my works. If as soon as your faith is tested, you go, oh, I can't believe in this God. He didn't do what I wanted. That's what's wrong with Jehovah. He does not care for anyone but himself. I'm sorry, but that's just not accurate. Let's change the subject. Like, nah. Grief is a powerful thing, but treating God like a genie or a tool, and if it doesn't go your way, is how a relationship with someone is healthy. Isn't how a relationship with someone is healthy. Yeah. So you know that Jehovah does nothing. No, because Jehovah has done other things in my life. Because he didn't answer one desperate prayer doesn't mean that everything else he's done and every other prayer he's answered in my life didn't happen. And I know they happened. Yeah, that was the big one that he said no to. But I'm not going to be like, but God, I know better than you. But God, this is the one you had to answer. I've prayed, I don't know how many times I've prayed in my life. Sometimes God answers the prayer. Sometimes he answers it immediately. Sometimes he answers it after a while. Sometimes he says no. His ways are not our ways. But it does the one really important one you really wanted an answer, a yes to, when he says no, that doesn't disappear everything else he's ever done in your life. Even though it may have been the most important thing you ever prayed for, in your opinion. You know? Man, I'm truly sad right now. I've lost so many friends and family members in the last decade. I literally teared up when I read your comment, right? It's been a really rough few years. And the older we get, the more it's going to happen. I hate to tell you. If look, I'll just say, if every Christian lost their faith because someone they loved died, there would be no Christians. Christianity was born through persecution, martyrdom, people dying because they loved Jesus so much. They loved him more than their own life. They loved him more than their family's life. They loved him first. That's what a God is. A God is what you put first in your life.
I know, like, look at this. It's so lucky.
Man, I can never say I understand, but I certainly have so much empathy for what you went through, that loss, and now. I mean, look, my nephew was like
It's just literally no complicated.
the closest thing to a son I had besides my sons.
All right, George.
And I've lost.
Mike.
I don't go through. I don't want to go through my different times of grief.
Hey, can you play it back?
But we all have grief. We all have grief. We all have suffering, and we all die. In order. Sorry, I don't need to laugh. This is not a laughing matter, but that's the test.
You see the neighbor.
If you failed the test, then your faith failed, which meant, did you have faith? Did you have a faith that when you went and you saw Christ in the final days, would he say, away from you, I never knew you? Or would he say, well done, now I know you love me? At that point, you can never tell what God answers or not. It's totally random. It's not. If you've been through the situations where it's like, it's not totally. I oftentimes give the example of when I needed $12,000, and my dad, who was like the stingiest, most frugal person you've ever met in your life, who'd never given me a freaking buck dime, he just called me up out of the blue and said he was sending me a check for $12,000, and I needed $12,000, like, exactly. And it's like, that kind of stuff is not literally random. That's not, I mean, there's stuff like that. And those are the kind of prayers that are like so incapable of being literally random that you should like write them down and be like, this was a prayer that could not have happened through any other means than, or that could not have been totally random, basically. Would you watch as your child suffers if you could change it? It depends. If I know what the purpose of the suffering is, right? Would you coddle your child through everything so that he never, ever, ever gets hurt and never, ever learns anything? Learning oftentimes is suffering. I once told my wife, God doesn't always give you what you want. Hey, keep it down a little bit. What you want, he gives you what you need, right? No one could never know if God does anything. It's random, literally. I just explained to you how it's not. If there is a Jehovah that watches children suffer, I am done with that, Jehovah. Okay, so you can't believe that God knows better than you do. That you're I'm sorry. This is just brutal. This is just brutally honest. You didn't have enough faith for life to not go your way. I know that's brutal and it's hard to say, but it's freaking it's true. And atheist after atheist. This is like 99% of the atheists out there. Oh no. God didn't save my parents' marriage. God didn't, stop my mom from having cancer. God didn't save my nephew from getting run over by a tractor. All this stuff. I mean, that's my experience, but that's not. I understand that I'm nothing compared to God. God, his ways are not our ways. We are so far below him in understanding. If like Bruce Almighty was like a joke, but man, you put a human being in God's position for 24 hours, his freaking brain would explode. The problem of suffering is one that has been around for a long time. There are answers to it, but I don't think that answer would help you, right? A God is not that. No, that's humans' take on God. I don't know what you're talking about. You have to be more specific because the chat moves and like I'm answering stuff, so it might have been a couple minutes since I said something, and I'm not going to remember my entire conversation. All I can say is that if I lost one of my sons or both, it would break me. Oh, yeah, losing my nephew broke me. It was like I was.
Yeah, good play.
The only way I can really explain it, it was like I was hit by a wave that I couldn't tell which way was up or down. I was just my whole world just spun, and it broke me. But I live in the real world where everyone suffers, everyone dies. And we are only promised one lifetime. And we get one lifetime. For some, it's 6 months, 6 weeks. For some, it's 120 years. You can't. I mean, you can't. Look, you can get mad at God all you want, but you don't sit there and pretend God doesn't exist because everybody dies. Everybody freaking dies. The harsh freaking truth. Everybody dies. If your argument is that I can't believe in a God that would let people die, I don't understand the rationality of that at all. We just have to know that this is a stepping stone. This existence goes by so fast, but to believe and be with God, we will be wonderful and for eternity. Amen. I can't even understand a God listening to prayers and saying, no, your children should be gone, is sick. I'm going to go, getting sad again. You would want your child to suffer. I can't take it. Bye. Well, bye, May.
What? Jordan, what are you doing?
Suffering is part of life. Suffering is growth. Suffering is learning. Suffering sucks. I'm perfectly aware suffering sucks. I've done plenty of it.
No,
In more ways than I'm even discussing on here.
Oh my gosh. I think we're on defense now. Right?
But your children should be gone. I get it. Everybody dies.
Wait, I don't have we're finally
That's just part of life. I'm friggin' sorry to break it to you. Mike, you're coming at this from the wrong angle. Not everything has to be debated.
Oh, I should stop it. Wait.
No, but sometimes a harsh truth just has to be told because It's just the harsh truth. I can't coddle. What? Because she's a woman? That would be sexist. Because I've been through this. I've been through this close enough. I mean, I lost my own baby. My losses have been enough to know I am very, very, very familiar with grief. And I'm not going to coddle somebody else because their grief was too much, but their faith was tested and they failed. And not to say that I'm so much better. It's not that I'm great. It's just that we all have, look, God's the only one who knows if you are for sure his, right? If you actually trust him. You can't say you trust God and then be like, oh, but God didn't do the one thing I wanted him to do. Therefore, I don't trust him.
I mean, this white crosshair is not good for this one.
That's not trust. That's not faith. And I'm sorry, I'm being freaking grim and morose and just harsh about it. But that's the truth. The truth is harsh. The truth is a bitch. I hate to tell you. May your memory of your child is the thing that you carry with you into the future. Continue to share those positive, eminent, and help lead other people from the empty promises of Christianity. Let me ask you, Benjamin, what about Jesus do you hate? What teaching? What did Jesus do? What is it that you hate about Jesus? Tell me that.
He's right here.
I feel you understand. Thank you. I don't get a man like this saying it's okay for children to suffer when you can change it. Well,
I can't tell where anyone is.
It's not a pleasant thing, but suffering is part of life. And if you're going to sit there and say, if I was God, I would make sure nobody ever suffered, then what Bible did you read that you were ever a Christian? What freaking Bible did you ever read that you claim that you were a Christian and you say that God would never or should never let anyone suffer? That is not the Bible. That might be some fictitious Western, I don't know, Joel Osteen Bible. That's not the Bible. That's not God. That's not Christianity. That's not Judaism. That's not reality. I don't know. I mean, it's okay. We just don't understand God's plan. I know I'm not happy with it a lot of times. We just have to have faith, my friend. That's true. That's right. You don't have to be happy about it. Look, man, suffering sucks, but it's the reality. That's part of it. Guess what? I'm still atheist. Okay. Positive moments, not eminent. Autocorrect sucks. So many times I just have to stop and think what Jesus went through. Right. Prometheus went through way more than Jesus. Okay. No one is saying it's okay for kids to suffer, but knowing that suffering happens isn't going to change anything. If God is all-powerful and does nothing, he is also guilty. Guilty of what? I'd like to see you orchestrate an entire planet of 8 billion people's lives and just make everything perfect for everybody so that somehow they still have faith, they still cry out to you, and yet everything's perfect for them all the time. We had that. It was called the Garden of Eden. Everyone deals with grief differently. That's true. May comes to Christian YouTube channels and starts crapping on God nonstop.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, this isn't her first time here. She did this all day. Was it yesterday or Friday?
Me neither.
She just came and just crapped on God the whole time. So that's how she deals with her grief, is by lashing out. That's why I asked her why she hates God, because I knew something happened to her. That's just from her emotional hatred of God. This was like, again, 99% of atheists. Something didn't go your way. We look at other humans that step in to stop crime and horrible things, and we label them heroes, right? True. It's our moral obligation to stop these things. We rebel against others that do nothing.
I had it, I sold it like 300 credits.
It's our moral obligation to stop these things.
Some black guys.
You know, most people don't stop anything. That's why they are called heroes, right?
Some black guys are like 30. Like
Yeah. So you won't believe in a God unless he takes away your free will, right? Because it is our free will that allows so much evil in this world. That's what evil is, right? It's an action taken against what you would consider the moral, the good, which is God's will. It's going against God's will that is evil. You won't believe in a God unless that God only creates automatons who are incapable of going against his will. Then there's no such thing as love. Forced love is called rape. Maybe God is not a babysitter or playing a micromanaging simulator game. Yeah, right. Seriously. That's the problem with prosperity gospel. Right. Right. But according to most believers, God is very present and active in their daily lives. Right. Yeah. It rains on the just and unjust alike. Correct. 8 billion lives, all with free will. Correct. Isn't that what heaven is? God is 100% capable of that. Well, I go back and forth on heaven. Because in heaven, a third of the angels decided they didn't want to do that. And what happened to them? They fell. And now they fight a war against God, right? Yeah, it's easy. If God actually gave us free will, we would have the free will not to be murdered. How old are you, Nanology? Because this is not an adult argument. This is not a grown-up argument. You realize free will includes the people who have the free will to murder you. Waxican says, yeah, and then when say, okay, well then I don't want to follow this religion. The Christian response is, oh yeah, have fun burning in hell. They'll teach you for complaining about kids with cancer. I'm not saying have fun burning in hell. I don't want anyone to go to hell. You don't warn people against hell by pretending hell doesn't exist, though, right? Perfection existed. Our predecessors spit on it. Yeah. God could have made the world where you need consent to do anything to anyone. Again, that would not be free will. You understand what free will is, Nanology? Okay, here we go. I don't hate Christ. You're offering grieving people empty platitudes and emptier promises. You think those are platitudes? Do you know what a platitude is? Do you know what the word platitude means? Were you not here? I was being very grim and very realistic, and I was not offering a single platitude. And people in the chat were like, Mike, don't do this. And I'm like, sorry. But the truth is a harsh lady dog. And platitudes. Oh, May, you're still here. Was I offering you platitudes? Oh my goodness. Also, you're the one I asked earlier, right? Why do you hate Christ? I don't hate Christ. No. Obviously you do. Right? Because you said, well, I don't want to go all the way back up to what you were saying. But what you were saying is about like how much, Christianity sucks and everything. Christianity is people trying to be like Christ. We fail, but sometimes we don't fail. So if Christianity is people trying to be like Christ, and you hate Christianity, what is it that you hate about people trying to be like Christ? What is it you hate about Jesus? Because that is what you're doing. Mike, people lash out when they're in pain. We've got to have some grace and compassion. I know. But at the same time, sometimes people just need to have the reality stick, Mike, I think May is reaching out. She's just angry and wanting relief from the pain. My guess, anyway. Well, yeah. Look, it says grieve with those who are grieving. I grieve. I'm very, very familiar, but I just can't. I just can't sit here and just let her bash Jesus, bash Jehovah left and right, because she has this false grip on reality where it's like, oh, I won't believe in a God that allows any suffering. Then that's your choice. And she's made that choice, right? Really got to go. You don't know me. And if Jehovah refuses to help children who suffer, he's not worth my attention. See, she's making a choice. She won't believe in a God who allows suffering. Then obviously she's never read the Bible. So that's kind of the thing. It's like, all right, I get it if you're like completely unfamiliar with the Bible and you've never read the Bible and you haven't seen all of the suffering throughout the 1600 pages of the Bible and recognize still that is the God of the Bible. Then how did you call yourself a Christian? Suffering is a huge part of the entirety of those 1600 pages. How did you call yourself a Christian and not know that? The world of nothing but consent. May I go to the bathroom in my pants? And neither does Jesus, apparently, and yet people don't get sick. Waxican, what is your first language? Or are you just really bad at typing? So God is either too weak to save all or a liar. The best reason you have to believe a hell even exists is because a book says it. Well, I do believe hell exists because the book says it, but I believe the book says it I believe the book because the book has proven itself to be written from outside of time and space, and I believe the author who claimed authorship of it, and considering he's the creator of the heavens and the earth and the universe and all reality and time space, then if he says hell exists, I'll take his word for it, not yours. God is either too weak to save all or a liar. It's not about weakness. It's about allowing people the freedom to choose. If you don't allow someone the freedom to choose, then there's no such thing as love. God created us to love him, and then we either choose to love him and trust him, or we reject him. If you reject him, what's he supposed to do? Spiritually rape you for eternity? Is that what you want? Because that's your other option. It's like, oh, you didn't love me. You don't love me. You hate me. You don't want to be anywhere near me, but I'm going to force you to sit at my side for all of eternity. Yeah, Waxkin. So you want to be a puppet on strings. Got it. Yeah. Waxigan is actually Pinocchio. Maybe if God wants people to choose him freely, he shouldn't offer ultimatums like worship me or suffer forever. Oh, it's not like that's the argument for loving God. Did you love your father because your choice was love me or I'll kick you out of my house? I mean, ultimately, he's got to kick you out of the house, right? But 12 minutes to the 1 hour mark. All right, right. Stop. Consider what hell. That hell is where some people want to be. Yeah, seriously. Apparently, I'm stronger than God of the Bible because his messy was on his mission. Are you just fat fingering this or what? Was to save all, but I've thwarted his plans. Right, because it's his will, but he can't force his will on someone with, say it with me, free will. You're choosing to reject eternity with God, but at the same time, you want to blame God for an eternity without God. How old are you? To save all, says Justin, you would need to remove free will and by default remove love. Correct. Why do people say Jesus had a wife but still maintain the thought that Mary never had relations? Like, how blasphemous. And people who say Jesus still had a wife are not. I doubt they're the Mary worshippers either. Nobody wants to be set on fire. Stop being stupid. Well, here's a weird thing: is like there's no like. I know it's called the Lake of Fire. I honestly wonder sometimes because what is a lake of fire? It's not like a lake on fire. It's a lake of fire. But at the same time, it's cold. Yeah, there's I don't understand it, and you don't understand it. All I understand is that functionally you're separated from God eternally. I mean, that's what you want, right? Well, here's the thing. God is the creator. So if you want to be away from God, then you have to be away from his creation. All right? You don't get to go. God's not going to go make a heaven for you, because that heaven would have to be maintained by the goodness of God. There's honestly, it's the resurrection thing, eternal life, eternal death. Wherever you go, and there's no like specific that, it's called the Lake of Fire, it's called eternal darkness, it's called, it's these things that seem like, how does this all work together? I don't know. But I know it's not good, because there is no good where there is no God. You don't want to be eternally with God. You don't want to be temporally with God. You don't want to spend 5 minutes with God, Waxigan. Why on earth would he force you to spend eternity with him? Waxigan just wants to be forcibly converted. I know, right? My typing is bad because of the character limit. Wow, how come nobody else is having that problem? Can you call into the deconstruction zone? I would love to listen to you offer these arguments in real time to a biblical scholar rather than random people on the internet. I ain't got time for that. Also, I find Justin terribly disingenuous. It doesn't sound like people understand what hell is. Did you watch him on Tin Pool? It was freaking hilarious. He came off as so just unhinged Jesus hating. Just like he tried to redirect everything to something wrong about Christianity. It's like, bro, we're having a totally different conversation. Why are you like you're so freaking demented in this? I know. You mean like Pharaoh? I'm sure he appreciated the free will choice to let Egyptians go. Ah, we got the Calvinist argument. All right. All right, so this goes all the way back to the beginning of this show where I was expressing the same thing that atheists, Justin included, very much so, and the Calvinists have in common is they misunderstand, or they it's not even so much you misunderstand. They're incapable of comprehending that they cannot comprehend eternity. They're stuck on if then. If this happened, then that happened. This is linear thought. They're stuck on linear thought. Because in the same chapter where it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart, it says Pharaoh hardened his own heart. So God is trying to express something from an eternal perspective, which to us sounds almost contradictory, right? God hardened Pharaoh's heart, or Pharaoh hardened Pharaoh's heart. God allowing a thing to happen, maybe even encouraging a thing to happen. It's not an if-then from his perspective, but he's trying to communicate that he's outside of time by giving us things like, yes, we're predetermined to do this thing, but it's God's will that every man is saved. It's God's will that everyone is saved, but everyone is not saved. So how does that work? Taking into account that everything is predetermined. It's predetermined from God's perspective because he's outside of time. Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and Pharaoh hardened his own heart because God is outside of time. The Bible is an integrated message system from outside of time and space. And sometimes that communication is difficult for, possibly nigh impossible, for linear beings to conceive of the eternal perspective. Especially since our language, all of our language, every language that's ever existed is time bound. So how is God to express and not a dimension outside of anything our languages can describe to us? Through string theory, maybe? I don't know. But it's not going to be through Hebrew, Greek, or English. It was to let the Israelites go. Is there any better good than salvation? The better good is loving God. You're mentally insane if you choose to be set on fire again instead of forced out of the burning house. So you want to be forced. You want to be forced to be converted. All right, Wax again. Get a bowl of water. I'm going to baptize you. Baptize. You got to admit that the Egyptians were done dirty. I don't know. Did the Egyptians allow their neighbors to be enslaved for 400 years? Sometimes the people are responsible for their allowance, right? Were the people of Germany responsible for allowing Hitler to rule their country? A distinction without a difference. So you say. Ha ha. Thank you for the dodges and reminders of how much copium you need to exist as a Christian. I'm not surprised you're not a fan of a host that forces you to face how gross your faith is. Now, I've just watched Justin enough to know how disingenuous he is. Also, I don't have time. I don't even have time for this show. I make time for this show because I feel I have to. Well, and that's maybe the wrong way to put it. It's not like it's a work that I'm required to do. It's just I feel like I have. I don't know. I feel like I need to do this show. So, also, you never answered the question about why you hate Jesus. God did not make a covenant with the Egyptians. There, wax again. You laugh, but only because, as you've shown, you're unsure if hell is a literal fire. If you thought it was literal, you'd probably want to be forced into heaven as well. No, I look, man. I would love for you to bend your knees and accept Christ, and then you wouldn't have to worry about hell. But I'm not going to pretend that hell isn't real. I don't know exactly what it is. The descriptions are probably somewhat metaphorical, considering it's called the lake of fire, eternal darkness, right? All that great stuff. Yeah. Mike makes time for the show because I aggravate the crap out of him every day about having a stream. It's part of it. But yeah, wax again. It's like, look, man, heaven is eternity with God. Heaven is eternity without God. Everything good and created is God. So why are you actively choosing to reject God? Look, if you accept God simply out of a fear of hell, that's a first step. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But it's a step that's supposed to lead you to eventually love God and trust God, so that even should someone close to you suffer and die, you don't reject him because you understand who he is. His nature is ultimately just. But unfortunately for ultimately, that means ultimately free will rules the day for a lot of people's lives. You have a choice whether you want to move towards God or away from God. And you sound like you're upset that God isn't forcing you to him. I don't get it. I don't have to worry about being unsure of hell being fire because I don't intend to go there, Waxkin. Put down the joint and read the Bible more. Okay. I know, good grief. The clowns screaming into the void against something they supposedly don't believe in. Yeah. Did the Egyptian people have a choice? Are you responsible for the actions of the State Department? Maybe you don't even agree. What if every American lost their firstborn as a lesson? Would that be fair? I'll be honest with you. For the crap that this country has done, for the 50 million babies that we as a nation, we guilty as a nation, have allowed, I think that would be more than fair. That's why you don't want fairness from God. You want mercy. You want grace. Fairness sends you to hell. Our country could burn to the ground right now, and it would be fair for what we've done to 50 million unborn babies. What did the Egyptians do? I mean, outside of everything else they did, like, they also allowed millions of people to be treated as chattel slavery. They allowed their pharaoh to kill all of the firstborn. Remember? You remember this, right? The pharaoh killed the firstborn males. Pharaoh killed every male child born during a season. This was God. That was completely fair. Yeah, it was fair. Unfortunately, fair is a bitch. Nobody wants fair. Jews had slaves too. Jews didn't have slaves like that. Everybody had slaves, but that's not what I'm talking about. Chattel slavery is not the same thing. Okay, I gotta get going, but I'm gonna okay because it means I have to leave behind the people I love. God loves me enough to save me, but not those I love. So I get to enjoy heaven. Well, again, free choice. You have choice, the freedom to choose, and every single person has the freedom to choose. And if your apologetic is that God will mind wipe me in heaven, not to worry about that, then you've conceded that God can and will force me to love him. No, I didn't. I have no idea how it is that we will just get over the grief. I mean, maybe the fairness of it. I mean, look, people you love are going to choose poorly. That's going to suck. I don't really have an argument about that. The people, God allows people their choice. Yeah, God extends the hand. You have to take it of your own free will. Mike, have you seen the sources? People in that area did super horrific stuff to each other, Jews included. Right, which again is why we shouldn't be asking for fair. This was your argument. Is it fair? Yeah, it's fair. We don't want fair. I don't want fair. Do you want fair? Or do you want mercy and grace? Huge difference. Huge difference, right? Because ain't none of us innocent. And if you don't stand up against a government that is your government, be they pharaoh, be they monarch, be they president, and just allow 50 million babies to be slaughtered over half a century. I don't want fair. Hey, it's just the law. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? No. Actually, a good troll makes interesting arguments. You are just all right. I'm gonna get going. Thanks everybody for being here. God bless you all. We'll see you on the next exciting episode. Please do jump on into the Discord. Somebody get a valid Discord link, please. Life went into overtime today. I get you. We need a valid Discord link in here for anybody who wants to continue the chit chat. Paddywhack. Give a dog a bone. Other than that, I'm gonna go make something to eat. Starving. Thank you. I'll see you. Yeah, Justin says Discord link no work. Yeah, we need. You know what? Let me grab one. Blacklist Universe. Invite people. I'm going to edit this invite link so it's forever. Never expires. Generate new link. Copy. All right, here we go. This link should never expire. There you go. Jump on in. Join the fun. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye now.